We're looking at week 6 fantasy football ad drop waiver wire pickups. Going to discuss that stuff. Going to discuss sell high players, buy low players, guys you should trade for, guys you should drop, and a couple of honorable mentions here on the ad drop list that didn't put. And I'll tell you why. Before I get into everything, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit walterfootball.com for tons of free content. You actually can see it on the screen here. We have tons of free content every single day for the NFL. We have NFL picks against the spread, college football picks. We have 2026 and 2027 NFL mock drafts, and NFL power rankings. We grade every signing, we grade every trade. It's all at walterfootball.com. All right, let's get to the fantasy ad drop and a couple of names here that aren't going to be on this list that I didn't put, and I'll tell you why. The first one is guys who should be owned in most of your leagues. I didn't put him here because he's owned in 70%. My threshold for this list is 50%. So if there's a player who's owned in less than 50% of leagues, I'll put him on. Otherwise, I'll leave him off. But Rico Dowdle, who just had 200 rushing yards, I don't need to tell you to add him. Chuba Hubbard is going to be out for one more game at least, maybe more. We'll see. He just had an amazing game. Granted, it's against the Dolphins, but he's definitely someone you want to own at least for 1 or 2 more weeks. And given how great he was against Miami, I think he's probably earned at least of a work share with Chuba Hubbard. So he's owned in 70% of leagues. So I didn't put him on the list, but obviously he has to be there. A couple other guys who didn't make the cut either for different reasons are Hassan Haskins and Kamani Vidal, the two Charger running backs. Now, Amari Hampton got hurt in the Chargers Redskins game. So in the fourth quarter, it was Hassan Haskins and Kamani Vidal splitting the workload. Look, I just didn't know which one to put. And frankly, both of them kind of suck. But if you're desperate for running back, if there's like no one else available, you could maybe take a shot on one of them. I think I like Haskins a little bit more, but it's really just a guessing game, and they're probably going to split it 50-50. So it's not even a great situation. Although the Chargers do play Miami, and we just saw what Rico Dowdle did to Miami. So it might be worth picking one up and just hoping that something good happens. But like I said, it's not a promising situation because you just don't know what they're going to do exactly. So let's get to my list here of ad drop week 6. So as you can see on the screen here, Kendry Miller was the highlighted player here. His priority is high. Kendry Miller saw 11 carries in week 4 compared to Alvin Kamara. He had 15 carries in week 4. It kind of flipped in week 5. Kendry Miller had 10 carries. Alvin Kamara had 8 carries. So Kendry Miller eclipsed Kamara, which was very interesting. Now there's speculation that Alvin Kamara could be traded. But either way, I would expect Kendry Miller to challenge Kamara for carries down the stretch. Not because Miller's good, but because Kamara is 30 years old. He has an injury history, and really he's not the future of the team. The Saints need to figure out if Kendry Miller is worth considering as the starting running back in 2026. So they need to give him a big workload. If not him, then Devin Neal. Like those guys will eat into Kamara's carries if Kamara is still on the team. But like I said, Kamara could be traded. The discussions are the Chiefs are a good fit for Kamara, which is true because they have absolutely nothing at running back, and Kamara will be a great fit in Andy Reid's offense. So if Kamara's moved, that's really going to open things up for Kendry Miller. Just keep in mind, Taysom Hill's still there. It's another reason to be bearish on Kamara right now is because he's not only losing carries to Kendry Miller, he's also losing carries to Taysom Hill, who's healthy now. So, but Miller needs to be added. He's owned, I think, in like 30% of ESPN leagues or something. So he should be acquired immediately. Tajay Spears, also priority high. He came back for the first time off IR against the Cardinals, which was a disaster of a game. If you saw that, this like horrendous bad beat. It just keeps getting worse and worse every week. I swear. You had DeMarcado dropping the ball. You had the interception that was dropped and then kicked into the end zone. And of course, the one Titans player there falls on it. It's just a disaster. But Tajay Spears played in that game. He didn't play all that much, but again, that was his first game back from injury. So he's going to get more and more of a workload as the season progresses. And you can't really trust Tony Pollard to stay healthy. His injury history is pretty extensive. So I would look into adding Spears. He's also owned in like 30% of ESPN leagues. So he needs to be added for sure. Romeo Doubs is still owned in less than 50% of leagues, which I think is kind of crazy. He had a monster game against the Cowboys. Now, I think people don't really trust that. And maybe deservedly so because Dobbs has been really consistent throughout his career. But the Packers have a lot of injuries at receiver, and it seems that right now Jordan Love likes to at least lock in on Dobbs. I kind of joke that Dobbs' big helmet kind of makes him stand out, and so Love's like, "Oh, I see Dobbs," and maybe there is something to that, but really, I mean, uh, they have a lot of injuries at receiver. I think eventually the rookie is going to get more and more of a target share, but right now Dobbs is the number one receiver on the Packers. It's not going to be the case the entire year. You're going to have other receivers step up. Yeah, I mentioned their first round rookie Matthew Golden, of course Jaden Reed as well. He's going to come back from injury eventually. There's also Tucker Kraft, but in the intermediate right now, I think Romeo Dobbs is a solid ad, and kind of surprised that he's still not owned in more than 50% of leagues. If you need a tight end, Theo Johnson. Of course, AJ Barner from the Seahawks had a big game too, but he's more of a blocker. So I think his production was more fluky than anything. But Theo Johnson caught 2 touchdowns. I've been talking this guy up all summer. He was someone I mentioned a lot when we're doing best ball drafts. I drafted him a lot in like the 19th round. So I don't know how much that paid off for my best ball teams, but I think it may have a little bit today because he scored 2 touchdowns. And look, with Malik Neighbors out, someone's going to have to catch the ball. Darius Slayton got hurt too today. So Theo Johnson's just going to get more and more of a target share here. And he's an athletic tight end. He has some upside. He's not just some plotting blocker who's going to catch a fluky touchdown or two. Like, he's actually a legit athlete. So like I said, if you need a tight end, get him. If you don't need a tight end, then don't really bother. I mean, he's not like an amazing player, but I think he's a solid option if you really need help at the position. And then I listed Kenneth Gainwell. We don't know Jalen Warren's status yet. Now the Steelers play the Browns, which is not overly optimistic here or bullish for Gainwell or Warren. But if Warren's out again, we saw that Kenneth Gainwell is going to dominate the majority of the touches. He's not like a great player by any means. I don't even know if he's a good player, but he's a high volume player on that team if Warren is out, and he's going to catch passes. Of course, he's going to get the majority of the carries because they don't really trust Caleb Johnson yet. So he's worth adding, I guess. If Warren is not active again, I think Gainwell is definitely worth starting, especially in PPR, unless you have better options, of course. Some buy low players, keep listing Travion Henderson here, but this is for a different reason. Antonio Gibson unfortunately suffered a bad injury on Sunday night, so it's really just Stevenson ahead of Henderson now, and not just not Henderson plus Gibson. Stevenson fumbled again too. They kept going with him. Eventually, it's going to be too much. Like, Stevenson is he's a career fumbler. It's what he does. He got benched twice last year because he fumbled. Now they have a new coaching staff. It's not Gerard Mayo anymore. So it looks like Mike Vrabel has a longer leash on this fumbling stuff, but eventually it's just going to be enough. I feel like Mike Vrabel, if he sees this 2 or 3 more times, he's gonna just yank Stevenson off the field. Henderson, I don't think he ever fumbled at Ohio State, not to my knowledge. So and plus he's obviously better than Stevenson. So I think second half of the year, Henderson's gonna have some really good games. So could be worth trading for him. Also, Jameson Williams, a couple of dud performances. He had a couple touches early, but then did nothing. But keep in mind in week 4, when the Lions played, I forget what their opponent was. The Cleveland. They play Cleveland. Jameson Williams had the most targets on the team, so he's still involved. They're just unfortunately just not getting the receptions right now, but I think that'll increase. Some guys to sell high. You have Nick Chubb, who this is really frustrating. Woody Marks was the big pickup heading into week 5, and Nick Chubb outcarried him inexplicably. Like, Nick Chubb is just washed up at this point. Now, Chubb actually had a good game, which is why you could sell high. It's not difficult to have a good game against Baltimore's run defense. Like, they're dead last in the NFL against the run. They have so many injuries on the team, so they just can't stop anyone. So Nick Chubb actually looked pretty decent here, but that was very misleading. It might have been his best game of the year, so I would try to trade him. Stephon Diggs, which might seem crazy because he just had an amazing performance on Sunday night. He was great in the game. I'm not saying he wasn't, but keep in mind he's 31. He has a knee injury history. This feels like this ceiling, and maybe it's not, but he's a huge injury risk. So it's going to feel real bad if you're like, oh, I want to keep him, and then 2 weeks later he's out with another knee injury coming off the torn ACL. Um, I would try to sell high, and you could definitely do that now, given how great he was in national TV. Travis Etienne, this is from last week, but they haven't played. Same with Caleb Williams. Etienne, not a big fan. No, he's had some easy matchups, like the Jaguars have played, the Panthers, the Bengals. They've had so many easy games here. The schedule's going to get tougher. So ETN is not going to be as great as we've seen. And then Caleb Williams, 2 big games, one against Dallas, who can't stop anyone, except for maybe the Jets. But Caleb Williams also recently had a couple good performances. He's someone who's going to fall off as well because Chicago's schedule going forward is pretty tough. A couple guys to ignore. AJ Barner, mentioned him. He's a good player for sure, but I don't know if he's going to be a good fantasy player. Maybe 1 or 2 times a year he's going to have a good game, but he's more of a blocker than a receiver. But he just happened to have an amazing game against Tampa. Luther Burden, this is from last week. Burden had a great week 3, but he did most of that on trick play, so it's not really sustainable. He's still playing behind Olamide Zaccheaus. Now, if you want to stash him for the long term, if you have a spot on your bench, that's fine. I would rather stash like a running back, like a Tyler Algier, for example, or Will Shipley for the Eagles, like guys who are going to become stars in fantasy if the starter ahead of them gets hurt. So I don't really feel the need to stash Burden. Ryan Flournoy, who had a big game against the Jets. But that was because CeeDee Lamb and Kavontae Turpin were both out. I assume Turpin's going to be back soon, and Lamb's not going to be too far behind him. He's not an IR or anything, so maybe like 2 more weeks. So if you like desperate receiver, maybe you could try Flournoy if Kavontae Turpin's out, but I wouldn't really expect all that much. Marvin Mims, this is from the Monday night game. I didn't really update it, but just wanted to prove my point here that Marvin Mims is not a real football player. Adonai Mitchell, this is from 2 weeks ago as well, but he did not play all that much. I think they were kind of penalizing him. For hopefully the Cardinals treat Amari DeMarcado the same way. And Trey Tucker, he's had a couple decent performances this year, but he's just not really a good player. So if he's out there, you want to pick him up and trade him. But I imagine he's scooped up already. But don't try to think that there's something there. A couple players to drop. Chris Godwin. I've been saying all summer he's not healthy. The injury he had, you don't come back from that right away. I think maybe 2026 is maybe a bounce back season for him. But this year he's just not showing anything. Just like 3 catches for 30 yards each week. It's like what you're going to get. Maybe he has like 1 or 2 big games or something. And then if you have him roster, you could trade him potentially, but I don't know if I'd count on that. Same thing with Cooper Kupp. Like these 2 guys were on atop my bust list in the summer. I said, I will not draft these guys. And, I think it's working out so far. Kupp had a semi-decent game, not terrible, but not great either. It's going to be one of his best games of the year. He's just washed up at this point. So that is the ad drop list for week 6. Let me know if I'm missing anyone, or if you have any questions, leave them in the comments section. But otherwise, please hit like and subscribe, share this video, and visit walterfootball.com for tons of NFL content every single day. And I'll talk to you in the next video.